Somewhere right now, someone is staring at their ceiling wondering if they can come back from what they've done. Somewhere else, someone is gripping the steering wheel too tight, wishing they could rewrite the last 5 years. And maybe, just maybe, you too are standing at the edge of your own life, unsure if there's still a way forward. The Stoics would tell you there is. Not just a way forward, but a way through. And it starts with the simplest, most defiant act of all, beginning again. There's nothing glamorous about this moment. It's quiet, personal, often lonely, but make no mistake, it's heroic. To begin again is to look at the wreckage and choose to rebuild. It is to walk into the storm, not because you're unafraid, but because the path of virtue is worth the struggle. The Stoics did not wait for perfect conditions or praise from others. They began where they were, with what they had, and who they were. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you are beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the failure. This is your clean slate, not offered by the world, but claimed by your own courage. So, if you're tired, begin again. If you're ashamed, begin again. If you've drifted far from yourself, begin again. Not with grand gestures, with simple truth, with quiet integrity, with a mind ready to walk the path of wisdom once more. This is your moment, not someday. Now, let us begin. Chapter 1. The Grace of a New Dawn. Every day begins the same. The sun rises, the sky shifts, the air changes. Nature begins again, without hesitation, without apology. The Stoics saw this not just as a phenomenon, but as a profound invitation. To begin again is not a weakness. It is strength. It is the mark of someone willing to continue after failure, to start over with dignity rather than decay in shame. Marcus Aurelius, burdened by responsibility as emperor, reminded himself each morning, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive." This was not sentimental. It was tactical, because yesterday's regrets hold no power if you refuse to carry them. The Stoics trained their minds to let go of what no longer serves the present, and to meet each day not with dread, but with readiness. How often do we imprison ourselves in the past, replaying what we should have said, done, chosen, reliving conversations that no longer exist, punishing ourselves with memories we cannot alter? We become captives of moments that have long since passed, holding ourselves on trial again and again for crimes already judged, for seasons already ended. But what the Stoics knew, what they practiced daily, was the discipline of presence, the refusal to hand today's peace to yesterday's ghosts. Time doesn't owe us a repeat. It only offers what is here. This breath, this hour, this fleeting yet sacred moment. And that is more than enough if we choose to meet it fully, to stand in it with clear eyes and an open soul. You can trace the paths you didn't take. You can examine the damage with honesty and humility. You can acknowledge the truth of your missteps. But don't confuse examination with imprisonment. The past is a teacher, not a cell. It is a classroom, not a cage. And you, still breathing, still conscious, still capable, are never beyond redemption, never too far gone to step back into the light. The Stoics believed in responsibility, not regret, in reflection, not rumination. They believed in movement, not mourning. They believed that character is not forged in the absence of mistakes, but in how we respond to them. Every fall is a question. Will you rise differently? Yes, you've been hurt. Yes, you've hurt others. Yes, you've wandered. But the capacity to begin again belongs to all who are willing to return to themselves with courage. The moment you decide to stop carrying what no longer serves you, you free your hands to build again. And that is an act of strength, not of denial. To forgive yourself, not to excuse the past, but to move forward with wisdom, is one of the most radical Stoic acts. It means you are no longer afraid of who you were because you are committed to who you will become. So, if you've strayed from your path, if you've lost your way or let yourself be pulled from your values, pause, breathe. Remember, it is not too late, not by years, not by mistakes, not by silence. Begin again. Begin, not because the road is clear, but because standing still is no longer an option. Begin, not with perfect answers, but with honest intention. Begin without shame, for shame only chains you to the past. There is only courage in trying once more. Courage not in being unshaken, but in being willing to rise while still trembling. There is no weakness in needing a new start. The weak are those who refuse to begin out of fear. The wise know that starting over is an act of power. They understand that self-renewal is the heartbeat of character. The Stoic does not flinch at the sight of his own fall. He studies the fall. He understands it. And then, step by deliberate step, he rises from it, not in denial, not in desperation, but in dignity. The philosopher does not curse the darkness forever. He does not sit in the ruins lamenting what he once had. He does not become addicted to his own narrative of pain. No, he lights a candle. He takes the next step. He makes the next choice. He walks forward, slowly, sometimes painfully, but forward nonetheless. He does not live in the collapse. He rises from it. He carries only what is useful. He leaves behind what poisons peace. This is your day, this breath, this exact moment where the world has opened just wide enough for change to enter. Not yesterday's echo repeating its guilt, not tomorrow's illusion offering false comfort. This day, raw, imperfect, and full of possibility, the only one in your hands, the only one that can be shaped. Stand up, begin again, not for show, not for applause, not because anyone will notice, but because your life matters too much to leave it dormant, because the flame inside you, though it flickers, has not gone out. Begin again, because something in you still aches for alignment, because the stillness you crave begins with a single brave act, because deep down you know this is not how your story ends. You are still here, you are still breathing, and while that remains true, so does this. You are not finished. Begin again, for the sake of who you were always meant to become. Chapter 2. Failure is not final. Failure, it stings, it humbles, it slows us down. But the Stoics didn't fear failure. They feared stagnation. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." What you consider a dead end is often just the end of a chapter. The page can turn, you can rewrite the next one. When you fail, the ego wants shame. It demands you shrink, disappear, retreat from the world that witnessed your stumble. It whispers that you're unworthy, that you've proven the worst suspicions you feared about yourself. The Stoic wants something else entirely. The Stoic wants truth, not punishment, but perspective, not self-loathing, but self-examination, not escape, but engagement. What happened? What led you here? What habits, assumptions, or decisions shaped this outcome? And most importantly, what must you now change? These are not questions of judgment. They are tools for rebuilding. Not why me, but what now? Not who is to blame, but what can I do next? Failure is not the enemy. It's the silence after failure that's dangerous. The withdrawal, the collapse, the choice to stop acting. There is a kind of failure that destroys, yes, but more often it's not the failure itself that breaks us. It's the refusal to begin again. It's the voice that says, "You've ruined everything," when in reality you've only reached a difficult turn. The Stoics knew that resilience is not marked by a life without hardship. Resilience is built in the pattern of falling and rising, again and again, not in blindness, but with eyes that have seen the dust of failure and still look forward, with steps that have been unsteady and still choose to walk with purpose. You are not your mistake. That is not your name. That is not your final line. You are what you choose after it. If you feel broken, then become the one who rebuilds, brick by honest brick. If you feel ashamed, become the one who acts with renewed integrity, even when no one is watching. If you feel lost, become the one who studies the map, who dares to ask for directions, who chooses a new direction and walks it faithfully. The Stoic does not fear rock bottom. Why? Because it is solid, because it is honest, because once you've reached the ground, you can finally stop pretending. You can finally begin the upward work. Rock bottom is not a grave. It is a foundation. It is the lowest point upon which the highest character can be built. Let that be your story too. Not the one who avoided failure, but the one who stood up from it. Not the one who was always strong, but the one who returned to strength after being humbled. Not the one who never fell, but the one who learned to rise with grace, with truth, with unshakable purpose. Let your response become your redemption. Let your resilience be your quiet, enduring triumph. Let failure not be your finish, but your forge. Let it shape you, not into someone bitter, but into someone brave. Chapter 3. Begin where you are, not where you wish to be. We dream of ideal conditions, the perfect moment to start, the right mood, the right time. But the Stoics rejected this fantasy. Life is not lived in ideal conditions, it is forged in imperfect realities. If you wait to feel ready, you may never begin. The philosopher begins where he stands. Epictetus was born into slavery. That was his starting point. No wealth, no freedom, no comfort. He had no platform, no status, and no obvious opportunity. Yet he didn't wait for better circumstances to act. He didn't waste time resenting the conditions he was born into. He began there, right in the depth of limitation. From that unlikely soil, he cultivated inner strength. From that raw, restrictive beginning, he built wisdom. He turned his attention inward and mastered what was his to master. From there he changed not only his own life, but countless others across generations. Stop waiting to become who you think you need to be before you act. That version you keep imagining, the one who is finally ready, finally confident, finally flawless, may never arrive. And the Stoics would say, that's not who you need to be. The Stoic acts and becomes in the doing. Strength does not arrive first. It is grown in motion. You do not build virtue by studying it from a safe distance. You embody it through decision, through effort, through the willingness to stumble forward. You learn by moving. You grow by practicing. You get stronger by engaging the tension, not by avoiding it. The resistance is the forge, and only those who enter it are shaped. Life will not give you pristine conditions. The philosopher doesn't wait for the world to align. He aligns himself with the world as it is and chooses to begin. Whether the sky is clear or storming, he steps forward. Whether confidence is strong or silent, he still moves. In every moment of doubt, there is a smaller, deeper voice whispering, "Act, not later." Now there's a humility in this truth, a sobering reality that dismisses excuses and dismantles the illusion of the perfect beginning. The myth that one day you'll wake up fearless, fully healed, completely ready, it's just that, a myth. Waiting for the stars to align delays the very progress that would bring clarity. The Stoics understood that perfect conditions rarely come. What comes is today, raw and unpredictable, yet still full of potential, still worthy of your effort. It's also deeply empowering, because if you don't need more time, or a better mood, or a flawless plan, what you need is already within reach. You do not need to be fixed first. You do not need to wait until you feel brave or unbreakable. Those feelings often come after the step is taken, not before. Begin again. Begin here. Even in your confusion, even in your fear, even in your lack, especially in those moments. Because this is how you begin to gather strength, by starting exactly where you are and refusing to stay there. By taking imperfect steps that stack into profound change. By building momentum not out of mastery, but out of motion. Every strong stride begins with a single trembling foot forward. The climb does not start at the summit. It begins with one step from the bottom, taken by someone who dares to rise despite not feeling ready. Do not ask for another place to start. Don't wish away your circumstances or wait for someone to rescue you from them. Ask only for the courage to start from this one. Ask for the clarity to recognize that today is enough to begin. Ask for the resolve to take the first step without needing to know the last. Ask only for the will to begin again when others would fold. Because the rare ones, the strong ones, the ones who reshape their own lives, they are not the ones who had everything. They are the ones who fought through the fog of doubt, who answered fear with action, who refused to give up on themselves when it would have been easy to. They are the ones who made a life from a moment just like this. That alone can change everything. Chapter 4. What matters now? The Stoic does not linger in yesterday, nor does he obsess over tomorrow. His power lies in presence. Seneca warned, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." We forget this. We wander through the fog of what if and what was, trying to live in timelines that no longer exist or have not yet arrived. We overthink what can't be changed and overplan for what may never happen. And in doing so, we forfeit the only thing we actually own, this moment, this breath, this opportunity to begin again. But to begin again, you must know where now is. You must step out of the mental traffic of distraction and pause long enough to ask, what matters now? Not what mattered to your old self 5 years ago, not what matters to the crowd cheering or criticizing from a distance. What matters to your soul, your conscience, your integrity in this moment. To live philosophically is not to reject the future or the past. It is to put them in their proper place, to let them inform you without ruling you. The Stoic understands that the past may offer lessons and the future may offer consequences, but neither should dominate your presence. Your energy belongs here, in the choices you can still make, in the values you can still honor, in the strength you can still cultivate. The power of beginning again lies in clarity. The Stoics did not chase everything. They did not flail at every opportunity or panic at every loss. They pursued the essential. They focused their energy where it counted. They trimmed the excess from their minds and their lives. And they asked the hardest, most illuminating questions. Does this serve my virtue? Does this strengthen my character? Does this align with the kind of person I am trying to become? Begin again, not with clutter, but with clarity. Not with noise, but with focus. Rebuild your life with intention, not impulse. Choose your next step with care. Let it be aligned, not rushed. Let it be worthy, not convenient. Strip away the distractions that compete for your attention, but offer nothing in return. Let go of the burdens you were never meant to carry. Resentment, comparison, approval. Begin again, carrying only what serves your soul's direction. Every day is a blank page, a sacred offering, a silent opportunity. But not everything deserves to be rewritten on it. Not every memory belongs in today's story. Not every ambition still serves your highest self. Some things must stay in yesterday, where they ended, where they served their purpose. Some goals are no longer yours because you've outgrown them. You've evolved. Some relationships, some regrets, some patterns, They were chapters, not lifelong identities. And the mistake is not in closing them, but in carrying them forward when they no longer belong. You are not who you once were, and so you no longer need to protect who you used to be. You are not obligated to remain loyal to an outdated version of yourself just because others are familiar with it. Growth means change, and change requires the courage to shed what no longer serves. You are not bound to the mistakes, the roles, or the self-concept that defined your past. Choose carefully what comes with you into this new beginning. Let your selection be intentional, not automatic. Choose as if your peace depends on it, because it does. Choose as if your future is a garden, and every belief, every commitment, every thought you plant will take root. Choose the thoughts that build, not erode. Choose the ones that remind you of your strength, not your scarcity. Choose to keep only the beliefs that invite clarity, courage, and calm. Let go of the mental scripts that belittle your effort or replay your old fears. Choose the commitments that align, not entangle. Choose relationships and responsibilities that mirror your values, not your insecurities. Choose only what strengthens you, elevates you, and brings you closer to truth, not just any truth, but the truth that endures, the one that lives beneath your noise, the one that echoes deepest within your conscience, steady and unshaken when storms return. This moment, this now, is your anchor. It is not a placeholder between the past and future. It is the foundation on which everything else is built. This moment is where you realign, where you catch your breath, where you decide, again, who you want to be. It is the point from which you stabilize, redirect, and ascend. Make it sacred with your attention. Guard it from distraction. Make it honest with your intention. Let it reflect your deepest values, not your shallowest impulses. Make it count not with noise, but with meaning. The world offers you endless stimulation, but meaning must be chosen. Purpose must be pursued. What you choose today becomes who you wake up as tomorrow, and who you are tomorrow decides what kind of life you're building. This moment is not small, it is the seed of all that follows. So pause, be deliberate, begin again, not as a reaction, but as a decision. Begin again, light, deliberate, unburdened, and unafraid. Because clarity lives here, strength lives here, and your future begins here. Chapter 5. The Discipline of Daily Renewal. It's not enough to begin again once. The Stoic knows you must begin again every day, sometimes every hour. This is discipline, not dramatic rebirths, but quiet, consistent returns to what matters. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to impress. He wrote to remind himself. His meditations were never meant to be published. They were notes to self, anchors in a chaotic world. Page after page, he returned to the same truths. Why? Because he knew the mind drifts. He knew that virtue isn't something you conquer once, it's something you recommit to continually. Wisdom is not a one-time acquisition. It does not stay with you unless you return to it. It must be practiced, repeated, reaffirmed like a vow, returned to like breath, steady, vital, unnoticed until it's gone. To renew daily is to admit we are human. It is to recognize that no matter how noble our intentions are, they fade. That even our strongest convictions can dull in the noise of daily life. We forget, we wander, we lose our center, but the power lies in coming back. And that coming back, again and again, is the mark of the Stoic. Not perfection, but perseverance. Not flawlessness, but fidelity to the path, even after we've strayed. There is no shame in needing to return. The shame is in choosing to stay lost when the path is always within reach. So, build rituals, not just habits driven by repetition, but sacred pauses driven by purpose. A morning moment to reflect, to remind yourself who you are and who you aim to be. An evening moment to review, not with judgment, but with awareness. A midday pause to breathe, to realign, to catch yourself before the drift becomes a detour. These rituals don't have to be long or elaborate, but they must be sincere. They must be yours. Anchor your day not in reaction, but in choice. The world pulls, so choose stillness. The world distracts, so return to focus. When the noise gets loud, the Stoic retreats inward, not to escape, but to remember. Each time you return, you make the path deeper. You train your mind to find its way back more quickly. You build trust with yourself. You become someone you can count on. These aren't dramatic, sweeping changes. They're quiet, deliberate ones, but they are the kind that endure. This is how the philosopher grows, not by grand gestures, but by daily, humble returns. This is how transformation happens, not in bursts, but in rhythm, not with noise, but with repetition, with patience, with a calm that says, I may fall, but I always find my way back. The Stoic does not look for constant reinvention. He looks for steady alignment. He doesn't wait for motivation. He builds discipline through daily renewal, and in that quiet, persistent return, he becomes unshakable. Let that be your way too. Return. Begin again. Today, and again tomorrow, until beginning again becomes your way of being. Chapter 6. Let the past be a teacher, not a prison. To begin again is not to erase the past. The Stoic does not try to forget what was. He studies it, learns from it, and places it where it belongs, behind him. There is no wisdom in pretending the past never happened. But there is even less wisdom in allowing it to rule your present. The past has value only when it informs the present. It becomes toxic when it defines it. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." That ending may have been painful, it may have been unjust, humiliating, or scarring, but it is still over. The question now is, what will you do with what remains? Regret is natural, but the Stoic does not bathe in it. He uses it as a tool. He reflects without drowning. He asks, what was my part in this? What can I carry forward that strengthens me? What must I leave behind so it doesn't weaken me? To begin again is not to forget. It is to process, to sift through the wreckage, take what's valuable, and leave what no longer serves. You are not the worst thing you've done, nor are you the best moment you've ever lived. You are not defined by your highest peak or your lowest valley. You are what you consistently choose next. That is where your life is being written, in the small, repeated decisions that shape the person you are becoming. If the past still haunts you, examine what part of it you haven't forgiven. Perhaps it's the version of you that didn't know better. Perhaps it's the voice that stayed silent when it should have spoken, or the hand that acted when it should have stayed still. Perhaps it's someone else's betrayal that lingers in your memory like an open wound. But forgiveness is not approval, it is liberation. Forgiveness does not say, what you did was right. It says, what you did will not rule me any longer. The Stoic forgives not to absolve the other, but to free the self. He recognizes that to carry resentment is to carry weight that belongs to someone else, and every step forward is heavier for it. So let the past speak, but do not let it shout. Let it whisper its lessons like an elder speaking quietly in the corner of the mind. Let it offer its insights, but do not allow it to become your master. The moment the past begins to dictate your worth or define your limits, it has crossed a line. Let it remind, but do not let it rule. You are not here to be ruled by old narratives. You are here to write new ones. Let it guide, but not govern. A guide offers direction, not domination. The Stoic lets it teach, but only as long as the lesson leads to virtue, not paralysis. Once the lesson is received, the Stoic moves forward, not with bitterness, but with clarity, not with denial, but with awareness. He begins again, not because the past is forgotten, but because he now sees more clearly where not to return. He carries wisdom, not wounds. He moves forward not in ignorance of the past, but in response to it. Each step becomes a declaration. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to do with it. And with each step, he proves that while the past may shape him, it does not confine him. He becomes the architect of a future no longer built from the ruins of regret, but from the raw material of renewal. That is the Stoic strength, not in turning away from history, but in mastering it and walking forward with steady, deliberate peace. Chapter 7. Choose a higher standard. To begin again is not just about motion, it's about direction. The Stoic does not rise simply to escape his past, but to rise towards something greater. He doesn't renew himself just to feel new, but to become noble. With each reset comes a decision. Will I return to what I was, or will I aim for something higher? The Stoic's path is not to do what is easy, but what is excellent. Marcus Aurelius, bearing the weight of an empire, still reminded himself, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. In other words, let your response rise above what brought you low. Let your reaction be governed not by impulse, but by virtue. When you begin again, do it with standards that challenge you. Not standards meant to impress others, but ones that elevate you inwardly. Not to prove your worth to the world, but to fulfill your nature as a rational, moral being. The Stoic does not measure himself by ease, applause, or outcome, but by alignment with principle. Begin not with the aim of avoiding failure, but with the aim of pursuing excellence. Set your compass by values like courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom, not by comfort, convenience, or popularity. These virtues are not glamorous, but they are enduring. They do not guarantee a smoother road, but they guarantee a straighter one. Choose the harder right over the easier wrong. Choose clarity over compliance, even when clarity means standing alone. Choose depth over display, substance over spectacle, character over charm. The world may not understand. It may misinterpret your stillness as weakness. It may see your restraint as insecurity. It may offer you shortcuts, ways to appear powerful without being disciplined, ways to be celebrated without being principled. It may reward performance over principle, image over substance. But the Stoic sees further. He sees that what is built on shallow ground collapses in time, that what is gained without integrity is lost without dignity, that true strength is not in domination, but in self-command. He knows that only what is rooted in character lasts. Everything else fades. Everything else rots. So choose a higher standard. Speak more honestly, even when your voice shakes. Act more deliberately, even when urgency presses. Think more deeply, even when the world encourages speed. Expect more from yourself, not as a punishment, not from pride, but as an act of reverence. Your life is sacred ground. Your time is finite. Your influence matters more than you think. Expect more because settling less robs the world of your best. And more than that, it robs you of peace. Begin again, not just with movement, but with meaning. Let that meaning be anchored in something worthy of who you are becoming. Let it rise from a foundation so deep, nothing shakes it. Not failure, not rejection, not misunderstanding. You don't need a perfect record. You need a pure aim. The Stoic's aim is not to be admired, it is to be aligned. And from that alignment, all true progress flows. Let your new beginning reflect not just your desire to change, but your decision to rise. Chapter 8. Others may not understand. Begin anyway. When you choose to begin again, when you choose growth over comfort and virtue over validation, not everyone will cheer for you. Some may misunderstand. Others may resist. The world often prefers the familiar version of you, even if that version was fractured, even if that version was less whole, less honest, less alive. Because your change, your rise, your clarity can unsettle others' complacency. Your growth forces a mirror into their hands, and not everyone is ready to look. When you no longer fit the role they assign to you, the agreeable one, the silent one, the broken one, they may feel threatened. And when you stop playing along with their expectations, they may try to guilt you, mock you, or shame you back into submission. But the Stoic does not need external permission to evolve. He does not consult the crowd when it comes to his character. He does not ask, will they approve? He asks, is this right? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. And the subject, your soul, your renewal, your rebirth, is yours alone to understand and to honor. No one else lives with your conscience. No one else bears the weight of your inner silence at night. You do. Others may try to hold you to your past. Let them. They may bring up old versions of you because that is what makes them comfortable. But you are not here to fit their narrative. You are here to write your own. You do not need to convince them that you've changed. You do not need their permission to grow. You only need to continue living in alignment with your values. Let your actions be your answer. Let your consistency be your strength. Let your peace be your protest. The philosopher does not argue his path. He walks it, and each silent step forward becomes a louder declaration than any speech. So if the people around you doubt you, mock your discipline, or dismiss your beginning, begin anyway. If they say, you've changed, let that be your confirmation. Change is not betrayal, it is transformation. If they say, you're not who you used to be, smile, because that is exactly the point. You have shed what no longer belongs. You have chosen to evolve. And evolution always costs something. Growth will cost you familiarity. It will cost you certain relationships, certain roles, certain illusions. But what it gives you is priceless. It gives you freedom. It gives you self-respect. It gives you the kind of strength that doesn't depend on applause. Begin anyway. Begin again. Even if no one claps. Even if no one sees. Even if you have to walk alone for a while. Even if your silence is misread and your change is resented. Because your life is not theirs to approve. It is yours to live. Yours to refine. Yours to protect. Do not waste precious time waiting for a nod that may never come. Do not trade your truth for their comfort. Every step taken in quiet alignment is worth more than 1,000 words spoken just to be liked. Let them misunderstand. Let them guess. Let them talk. While they debate your becoming, you live it. While they compare you to who you were, you walk steadily toward who you are meant to be. Your responsibility is not to meet expectations. It is to meet your own potential. You do not need to be celebrated to be right. You do not need to be echoed to be true. And if you must walk in solitude for a season to walk in integrity for a lifetime, so be it. Solitude to the Stoic is not exile. It is sanctuary. It is not emptiness, but a refining fire, a space where distractions fall away and truth rises to the surface. In solitude, he listens, he clarifies, he reconnects with the quiet voice of reason within him that is so often drowned out by the crowd. The Stoic does not fear solitude. He uses it like a sculptor uses a chisel, shaping, removing, refining. He does not chase noise to avoid himself. He turns inward to remember who he is. He strips away what is performative and uncovers what is principled. For him, the approval of the crowd pales in comparison to the approval of his conscience. The crowd may be loud, but it is not wise. It may offer attention, but it cannot offer direction. What is shouted by the many cannot compete with what is quietly known by the soul. That is the Stoic way, and that is enough, because when you live with alignment, solitude becomes strength. It transforms from something to escape into something to embrace. It becomes the forge where clarity is shaped, where silence teaches, and where the noise of the world fades into irrelevance. Solitude offers the rarest kind of vision, the ability to see yourself clearly, apart from status, distraction, or judgment. When you walk with truth, the path becomes clear, even if walked alone. You no longer look left or right for direction. You no longer seek the reassurance of the herd. You walk your own path, not because it is glamorous or admired, but because it is right. You become anchored in something deeper than reputation. You become accountable not to public opinion, but to your own virtue. And when you act with integrity, the quiet becomes peace, not punishment. It becomes rest, not rejection. It becomes clarity, not exile. You realize you are not alone in a crowd. You are with yourself, fully, wholly, without performance. You are no longer playing roles. You are living in rhythm with your values. That is where the real freedom lives. That is where the Stoic finds his unshakable center. And in that center, there is no need for applause, only the quiet, steady rhythm of a life lived in truth. Chapter 9. Resilience is built in the return. The Stoic is not afraid of falling. He is afraid of refusing to rise. For it is not the failure that defines a life. It is the response. It is not the setback that shapes character. It is what you do when you are down that matters most. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And this is the core of Stoic resilience, not invulnerability, but endurance. To begin again after a failure is not weakness, it is the essence of strength. It means you were hurt, but you chose healing. It means you were delayed, but not defeated. It means you met the wall, and instead of sitting down, you turned and searched for another way forward. The Stoic returns, always, and in every return he grows stronger, deeper, more anchored. Resilience is not about pretending things are fine. It's not a mask or a performance. It's not about smiling when you're breaking inside or pretending the storm doesn't sting. It's about knowing things are hard and continuing anyway. It's about telling the truth to yourself. This is difficult, and I'm still choosing to move forward. It's not the absence of pain, but the refusal to let pain dictate your choices. It's about rising every time, not with blind optimism or naive hope, but with clear-eyed resolve. A calm commitment that says, even if I fail again, I will keep returning. Resilience is not built in moments of ease, but in moments when you could quit and don't. It's about not letting the pain of the fall speak louder than the purpose pulling you forward. It's about remembering that discomfort is temporary, but the decisions you make during discomfort can last a lifetime. The Stoic feels the ache of the stumble, but he doesn't worship it. He doesn't replay it endlessly. He takes from it what he must and leaves the rest behind. He lets purpose guide him, not emotion. Each return is a quiet act of power, not a spectacle, not a declaration, but a sacred decision whispered in solitude. I will not quit. I will not betray the values I committed to when I was clear-headed and courageous. I will not let the difficulty rob me of the discipline I have worked to build. The Stoic walks back onto the path not because it is easy, not because others are watching, but because it is necessary. Because the path itself is the reward, the place where strength is grown, where identity is solidified, where peace is earned. So when you fall, and you will, return. Not with shame, but with sincerity. Not with a perfect plan, but with a willing heart. When you forget, remember. Remember why you started. Remember who you said you wanted to be. When you hesitate, move, not recklessly, but with resolve. When you doubt, stand, not because the fear is gone, but because your values matter more than your fear. Do not wait to feel perfect to return. You never will. And perfection was never the requirement. Honesty was. Commitment was. Courage was. Return as you are, dusty, bruised, ashamed, confused. Return with trembling hands and a weary heart, if that's all you have. But return. Return because you still care, because something in you still wants to live with integrity, even when it's hard. Because the worst thing is not the fall, it's refusing to rise when you still can. Each step forward after the fall is a step deeper into who you are. It is a statement of identity. I am not done. I am not broken beyond repair. I still choose the path of virtue. It is proof that you are not here to be flawless. You are here to be faithful, faithful to your values, not only when they're easy to live by, but when they demand something from you. Faithful to your vision, not only when it's vivid, but when it's distant and dim. Faithful to the calling that lives in your quietest moments, the one no one else sees, but you know it's there. The one that says, you were made to rise. That is resilience. That is what the Stoic cultivates, not a life free from failure, but a will that never breaks in the face of it. A heart that is honest enough to admit its weakness and still chooses strength. A soul that falls and returns, that learns, that adjusts, that continues, that walks not because it is easy, but because it is right. That is the Stoic way, and it is always available to you, not only in moments of strength, but especially in moments of weakness, especially when you rise again. That moment, quiet, invisible to the world, is where the real power lives. Not the show of force, but the quiet force of will. Not the roar of triumph, but the breath between tears that still says, I will try again. This is not a cinematic victory. It is personal, internal, and deeply human. It is not for others to applaud. It is for you to recognize. That moment is where character is forged, not in the celebration, but in the silence. Not when you are at your best, but when you are at your most doubtful and still choose to walk forward. That is when the soul becomes steel. That is when you grow roots deep enough to endure any future storm. Resilience is not about flashing light. It is about unseen endurance. That is where your future begins anew. Not someday, but now. Not perfectly, but honestly. The future is not built all at once. It is built in these tiny, courageous acts of recommitment, of returning to the path even when your legs shake, of showing up to your life even when no one else sees it, of beginning again, not just because you can, but because you must. Return, rise, begin again, and know that every time you do, you are becoming something stronger than before. Chapter 10. The power is in this moment. The Stoic does not postpone his life. He does not wait for better circumstances, for permission, or for the perfect alignment of events. He acts now, because now is all he truly owns. Marcus Aurelius asked himself again and again, "What is in my power now?" That was not a rhetorical question. It was a practical one, a compass, because all strength, all clarity, all transformation begins with what you do in this moment, not the next. When you hesitate, when you stall your growth waiting for ideal timing, remember, you are surrendering your life to a fantasy. The Stoics knew that procrastination is not just a time issue, it is a courage issue. It's the mind avoiding discomfort, disguising fear as strategy. But there is no virtue in delay. There is no wisdom in waiting endlessly to act in alignment with what you already know is true. Power exists here, in the breath you are taking, in the thought you are forming, in the choice right in front of you. It does not reside in someday, it lives in now. In this very second, you are being offered a door, not a door into certainty, but into action, into character, into becoming. You don't have to have everything figured out to begin. You don't need to know how the entire story ends. You just have to begin with what is clear, the next right word, the next right action, the next deliberate step. Life does not demand that you be perfect. It asks only that you be present. Hesitation whispers, later. Fear replies, maybe never. But purpose answers, now. Power is not dramatic. It is not always visible. Often it looks like showing up when no one else does, like choosing principle when it's inconvenient, like taking one small, courageous act while doubt is still in the room. The Stoics understood that most people waste their lives waiting for the ideal. They wait for a sign, for motivation, for ease. But life belongs to those who step into it without a guarantee. Do not outsource your future to chance. Do not hand over your agency to emotion or delay. Your future is not an accident waiting to happen. It is a reality you shape with each conscious decision. Own it with presence. Own it with choice. Each moment you give away to hesitation, you withdraw from your potential. The Stoic does not get lost in abstract intentions. He does not drown in dreams or promises. He returns again and again to what is within reach, to what is simple, concrete, and actionable, to what can be done today. He understands that philosophy lives not on the bookshelf, but in how he responds to this hour. This is how he changes his life, not through dramatic reinventions, but through quiet, consistent alignment with this moment. He plants small seeds of action that grow into forests of transformation. That is where true change takes root, not in declarations, but in decisions, not in grandeur, but in groundedness. So ask yourself now, honestly and without distraction, what is in your power? Not next week, not when conditions are perfect, not when you feel ready. Now, strip it down to the immediate, to the real, to what is already within your control. What can you do today, this very hour, that honors who you claim to be becoming? What choice reflects your highest self, even if no one is watching, even if it won't be praised? Because that is the test of character. Doing the right thing, not because it will be seen, but because it aligns with your soul. What habit can you return to that restores rhythm to your spirit? What word can you speak that clears the air or sets a boundary? What promise can you make and actually keep quietly, with discipline? What act, no matter how small, pulls you back into integrity? These are not just gestures, they are declarations of identity. Each is a thread you can use to weave your way back to the version of yourself that you once glimpsed and want to live into. What is one step, not 10, not the whole staircase, just one, that echoes your values so clearly that even your doubt can't argue with it? Take that step, make that call, write that page, say that apology, cut that vice, speak that truth. Begin again, not as a performance but as a practice, not in theory, not in abstraction, but in grounded, real action. Action is the philosopher's devotion. It is the highest expression of belief. It is how values stop being ideas and start becoming architecture. And this action must be lived, not delayed. The Stoic doesn't dream of someday. He engages with now, because this moment is not small. It is not some pause between the significant chapters of your life. It is the significant chapter. It is where your choices shape not just what happens, but who you are. It is the arena where your decisions give birth to your future, silently, consistently, powerfully. And how you choose in this moment becomes the pattern for every moment that follows. Each choice teaches your nervous system what to expect of you. Each act of discipline reinforces a self-image. Each return to your values sharpens the blade of your identity. So choose with presence, not from the residue of yesterday's failures, nor the projections of tomorrow's fears. Choose with purpose, not borrowed from others, but forged from your own conscience. Choose with strength, not by force, but through quiet, unwavering resolve. Begin again, right here, right now, and let the person you are becoming reveal themselves, not through talk, not through intention, but through action taken when it mattered most. In this moment, this is where all of it begins.